Joining us in studio, Lakite Gisho, Transform RSA Deputy President, Sepo Khadima, extending his stay with us. He's a political analyst. Musiritsiane is the chair and president of the South African Liberty Foundation. Cleopatra Mosana is the public protector's spokesperson. Good evening to you. We'll start with you, Cleopatra, and thanks so much for joining us. I mean, how's the public protector viewed this call of having a committee to essentially scrutinize her fitness to hold office?
Good evening to you and your viewers. As you would know that the Democratic Alliance, this is actually very malicious. It actually shows the true colors of the DA because they've never initially supported the appointment of the public protector. This is only done to instill fear and to interfere with the work of the public protector.
All right, and any other recourse that is available to the public protector? Because as you said, she essentially walked into a hostile environment where a lot of assumptions were made. Firstly, that she was accused to be a spy and to be a protector of President Jacob Zuma, etc. Should the public protector be more proactive in defending her character or her person, as it were?
Look, one of the things which we find, which is very unfortunate, is that the DA should actually respect the rule of law and the Constitution, because they were the first ones to call the public protector a spy. And when they were asked to prove their allegations, they could not provide any evidence. And as you can see, the public protector has done remarkable work. Within a year in office, she has been able to produce 27 reports. And there's only one report which became an issue that became of public debate. So there is no reason that anybody should doubt the confidence of the public protector in exercising her duties. And she would not resign, and she will finish her term in office.
All right, please stay on the line, Cleopatra. Your view, Tsepo, especially when it comes to having a prima facie case, whether we should be concerned about the fitness to hold office of the public protector.
The question that at least was discharged today was that was there a prima facie case to be made against public protector advocate Mkhwebane, and the answer is a categorical no. We have to bear in mind that right at the beginning, when the Democratic Alliance sought to introduce this motion that an inquiry be held, they did the most egregious thing by withholding the evidence that should have helped other fellow members of parliament in at least considering and therefore being able to vote as for the information. So we know that the matter then, it had to be postponed to today after the information or the evidential material that the Democratic Alliance had in their possession only availed to the members of the committee that morning that they first had the initial inquiry. But secondly, the issue is that when you look in terms of the constitutional provision on how or what is required to remove the public protector from office, that is trying to climb Everest without an oxygen mask. Of course, you are bound to faint. And I can't be surprised. I just cannot see how they thought that they could get 2/3 of National Assembly members to be able to vote with them, more so when they couldn't even hold course on the case that they were trying to make. But it, if anything, their conduct revealed everything that we should be concerned about. Why is the South African Reserve Bank a holy cow? This is a holy cow that must now be slaughtered, and we hope it can be done so humanely.
And you can correct me, Cleopatra, but I know that we've had the public protector on record saying that, especially with the release of the SAIEX report and the ABSA apartheid bailout funds, she's been under attack, her house being burgled, and etc., and even threats to her life. But who then is supposed to protect the public protector? Because this was, again, a democratically followed process where she had to present her case in front of different political parties. It was largely on television for all to see. Who's supposed to protect her in this case so that she can complete her duties?
No, obviously, she has been appointed by the committee, that committee. But of course, Parliament must do that. I just wanted to bring another view to say perhaps the issue of the South African Reserve Bank might also have caused some challenges for her, even if we know for a fact that she did good, even if she was told that she's overreaching her powers. But what is critical is that, assuming that she's doing that, but the Constitution is very clear, and the Constitutional Court has made it very clear to say the powers, the remedial action of the public protector are binding. But you can review that. Now, the issue is, if that can be reviewed, it's like any other court case where the judge take a decision and then it's appealed, and then the Supreme Court of Appeal decide otherwise. So there's nothing wrong that she has done, even if she might have lost this case. You see, so we don't understand what is that they want after her.
Cleopatra, in your view, do you think that the public protector and the release of the SAIEX report, at least the extension of the mandate of the Reserve Bank, in hindsight, that she lended herself to this level of scrutiny and undermining her capacity and capability, her understanding of her duties and her jurisdiction?
Look, I think the issue, Cindy, here, which probably I need to first correct, because you would know that the issue of the Reserve Bank is still in court. The public protector conceded on the remedial action, and therefore there was nothing wrong that she had done. It's just that it's the manner in which the remedial action was crafted. The sad thing is that it's the manner in which people have been trying to undermine her work, because if you look at the report, there is nothing else that seems to suggest that in terms of the law, there is something wrong in the law, in the manner in which she has done the investigation and how she reached her remedial action. It was just in the manner in which that remedial action, which she had crafted, she had considered on, was crafted, which caused the whole hullabaloo. And obviously, if you are tackling issues of the banks, obviously you will get such criticism. And hence I'm saying that what we should be focusing on is the work that the public protector has been doing and what she seeks to do for the poor, as she says in her Vision 2023, that she speaks for the voiceless, and if there are any things that need to be corrected, they need to be corrected in terms of the law and be guided by the Constitution.
Please stay on the line. Sepo, I mean, she didn't do herself any favors, because even in the response, albeit that there was a retraction of that particular remedial action, was in the lack or the inability to explain where the faux pas happened, whether it was a typo, whether it was not adequate advice. I think the public protector had essentially opened the floodgates to scrutiny or even criticism further.
Yeah, I mean, we're dealing with a case now of review of the public protector's, what I call a document on the state of capture in terms of the remedial action, in terms of constitutionality. The current public protector conceded that her prescriptive text on the amendment of the Constitution as far as the Reserve Bank is concerned indeed was an overreach. However, what is important for all to note is this: the finding that the current mandate of the South African Reserve Bank is inadequate, that finding was not set aside. And the South African Reserve Bank did not argue in the alternative that in fact the mandate that is currently in the Constitution is adequate, because they would not have been able to hold cause. That mandate, which they protest loudly, that it should be for the protection of the rand or the currency, we know that they have done a willful job of trying to protect the currency. The currency currently now is sitting at 14 rand 9 cents, I think, by 6 o'clock this evening. And from 2009 to date, what kind of protection is that, where you can move from 8 rand to 14 rand? So that finding has never been reviewed or set aside. It is the remedial action on the basis that it was an overreach as it encroached and breached the separation of powers principle. But the finding stands. So the question therefore is, what will the members of Parliament of South Africa do with that finding of the public protector on the inadequacy of the current mandate of the South African Reserve Bank? And will they exercise their constitutional powers to then move ahead to amend the Constitution to ensure that there is adequate mandate other than what we currently have.
Cleopatra, just your response and the engagement with regards to that particular matter of Parliament reforming or amending the mandate of the Reserve Bank.
And as I said earlier on, I think the analyst is correct, Cindy. The issue is currently before the court, and the public protector had no intention whatsoever to amend the constitution. As I said earlier on, it was just in the crafting, because the report is still standing and it is binding. So that's where we are at this stage. So that is why this whole issue of the DA checking the fitness of the public protector into office is actually interfering with the work of the public protector and not respecting the rule of law.
I mean, has it become personal in your view that this is a vendetta? We know the public protector with the DA leader Waters, who had released the results of a provisional case, that in itself was unconstitutional, or he didn't have the right to do so, and all the other historical clashes that we've seen between the DA and the public protector. Has it become personal in your view?
Certainly. Remember when she was interviewed, already there were challenges from DA to say she's a spy. And coupled with the issue that you have just mentioned of Mike Waters, they really did not want her from the beginning. And we think that the reason why they don't want him is because she is tilting the balance of forces, the status quo, especially with regard to the Reserve Bank, for instance. We think she did a very good thing by raising the alarm around the responsibility and the functions of the Reserve Bank. She did a very good job, and I think she must be supported, because we can see the onslaught from the opposition, especially DA, who wants her out. And we think that it must not be allowed. And we really thank the ANC for standing together on her this time.
Yeah, but what is the real threat, real or perceived, in the Reserve Bank extending its mandate, considering the backlash that Advocate Mkhwebane was met with?
Well, there are a number of things to be taken into account, and one of them is, of course, the failure for various or erstwhile governors of the Reserve Bank who failed in their duty to protect the state, and more so because the South African Reserve Bank is an organ of state, in recovering the monies that were due and payable. And the investigation, nobody has been able to rebut with substantive evidence why the monies are not due. However, I believe that the remedial action that a SIU investigation ensue from her investigation on the Bangkok lifeboat has effectively meant that very high-powered people in this country could have a real case to answer in a criminal proceedings, and I think that's what's giving people sleepless nights, and hence she's being attacked to this level. However, as South Africans and members of parliament who have been entrusted with the sacred duty of lawmaking for this nation, the question is that exactly what will they do? Because when we look at the crafters of our constitution, at the time they did so on the provision relating to the South African Reserve Bank, those crafters of the constitution were not psychic enough to foresee a situation we find ourselves in with a highly volatile currency, which the Reserve Bank is not able to protect, despite that they believe that it is their mandate. And of course, on the other hand, the fact that the Reserve Bank is now a Sarbino, South African Reserve Bank in name only, as is no longer the lender of last resort, as it should have been, and also has outsourced money supply functions to the private sector. And those are exceedingly worrisome a turn of events at the South African Reserve Bank. So members of parliament, as I say, they have to exercise that duty, and they must ensure that they do so as members of parliament without doing a favor to anyone else.
Cleopatra, just very quickly, you were saying that the public protector is concerned in that, the hindrance in her performing her duties because of these attacks, but were you anticipating, or what are you anticipating going forward with the relentless attack on her continuing?
Look, the public protector is going to continue, and she should be given space to be allowed to do her work without fear or favor, because it becomes a challenge if, as you would know, in terms of the Constitution, nobody should interfere with the work of the public protector. Now, if every time when she makes one move, there is a hurdle, therefore it affects the manner, it affects her focus. So if we can just ask for the Democratic Alliance and any other political party to just allow the public protector space and to have confidence in the work that she does, so that the public can be able to get to the benefits, because at the end of the day, the institution is there to strengthen constitutional democracy, and it's not about political differences and petty politics.
So you're saying they're in violation of the Constitution with regards to the public protector and their interference in the public protector's work. So how do you correct that? How do you, mitigate that?
What the public protector had done, because she didn't want to, she doesn't have an approach that is antagonistic when she deals with these issues. She had gave the Democratic Alliance an opportunity and invited them, because she wanted to get to the crux of it, because you must understand the Democratic Alliance is a political party. It has constituencies, and it represents the people, so that at the end of the day, if there are issues in terms of how the Democratic Alliance is not understanding the role of the public protector, maybe public protector can educate them what is her role in the office, so that they can then be able to educate their own constituencies. But we have not been able to have such a meeting with the leader of the Democratic Alliance. As you would know, that there's so many things that the public protector has done. You can, as she just recently mediated in the case of Mkhwebane, because the main issue for her is that how do we resolve the systemic problems that are there to ensure that everyone, every citizen enjoys the fruit of our democracy. And she can only do that if nobody interferes with the work that she does.
So when are you anticipating to meet with the leadership of the DA?
It's when the DA responds to the public protector had written to the DA in July already, but you can see their focus is checking fitness into office instead of ensuring that there is a healthy democracy. They first deal with first things first, so we're waiting on them.
All right, Cleopatra Musana, Public Protector spokesperson, thanks so much for joining us. I mean, this is not the end of it. I mean, if you were to look at the trend or the pattern of the hostility between the public protector and the opposition parties. Go through the Constitution. Maybe explain to us, is there a legal method that the DA would have their wish in getting rid of the public protector?
No, I think it's going to be very difficult for them. Of course, Section 194 is clear that not the DA, but the committee parliament can be able to remove if she's incompetent, and all of those other things. But what is critical for us to know is to say, before she can be removed, there must be a 2/3 majority that will agree that she must be removed, which is virtually impossible for them to achieve. And the reason for me to say that, I think it's very clear that she must have consolation in the fact that she's supported by the majority of the members of parliament, but also the society general supports her. So I don't think DA will succeed in removing her.
Very briefly, Tabo, we have to go.
There are very important cases ahead that the public protector will have to handle. So the frivolous course of action by the Democratic Alliance must be seen in context, that it is nothing short of a tactic to intimidate the office of the public protector in order to invoke fear of removal so that she cannot do her job as so required in terms of the Constitution, and that we should frown upon in the most extreme terms, because it will bring disrepute into the office of the public protector. We can least afford that.
All right, thanks again, gentlemen. And it's been a very long day in the office today because of the budget speech, and I guess also extending their liberties, or our liberties, to join us on the discussion. Really appreciate it, Tsepo Khadima. And Lucky Tekisho is with Transform RSA as their Deputy President. Tsepo Khadima is a political analyst, and you at home, thanks as always for joining us. We take a break. I'll see you on the other side.